Hi. Black Hill Station, Wyoming Territory. October. The wind howled like something wounded. Snow spiraled in the darkness. June Elder sat alone on a frozen bench, her gloved hands clutched around a bundle of letters. Inked promises from a man she had never met. The last train had left an hour ago. Bootsteps crunched behind her. A man loomed from the shadows. Cold eyes, rough coat. He stopped a few feet away. "You, June?" She stood. "Yes. I have your letters if you'd like to." He cut her off. "I didn't sign up for a ghost with baggage. I wanted a wife." His voice was dry flint. Then he turned and walked into the night. June didn't call after him. She just stood there, the silence wrapping tighter. Then, "Can you read me a story?" asked a small voice. June turned. A little girl, no more than 7, stood by the edge of the platform. Alone, barefoot, clutching a battered book to her chest. She hadn't always been June Elder. Once, she was June Whitmore, a schoolteacher in a yellow dress, hair tied back with blue ribbon, humming as she chalked letters onto a blackboard in a town too small to be on most maps. Children laughed there. Church bells rang on Sundays. Life was quiet, honest, until fire came. The raiders wore Confederate coats with no flags and left behind nothing but ash. They struck at dawn. June woke to screaming and smoke. She ran barefoot through cinders, calling for her students. Some she never found. Her father, once sheriff, died defending the church. Her mother perished inside their burning home. June buried them both in the cold ground with her own blistered hands. After that, she drifted, town to town, train to train. Her teaching certificates lost in the fire. Her name, too. Elder was her grandmother's name, taken because she couldn't bear to hear Whitmore spoken anymore. She wore plain dresses now, no ribbon. Fear made her quiet. Grief made her small. In Kansas, a notice board bore the headline, "Lonely farmer seeking decent woman for marriage. Letters welcome." His name was Thomas Gray, a widower, claimed to be kind. Said he had a daughter who needed gentle guidance. His handwriting was patient, steady. In the letters, he called her Miss June. Said he liked her thoughts about books and God and growing tomatoes. Said he'd welcome her smile like the first day of spring. She replied out of desperation, not hope. But after the second letter, she found herself waiting for the postman. After the fourth, she bought a new dress. After the sixth, she climbed aboard the train to Wyoming Territory. And now she stood in the snow, abandoned by the man whose words she'd folded and unfolded until the ink had faded. The cold pressed into her spine. But the child had waited too. "I'm Maisie," said the little girl. Her voice trembled. "Papa was supposed to bring me home." "Your papa? Is he Thomas Gray?" She shook her head. "No, he's Hank Fletcher. We live past Red Willow. Miss Hopkins was with me, but she got off 2 stops ago. I think I was supposed to wait, but the snow came and I got scared." Maisie lifted the book. "Can you read me a story? I'm cold, and I don't like the dark." June looked at the child. Blue lips, tangled hair, bare feet in broken shoes, and something shifted inside her, soft and terrible. She took the girl's hand. "Come on, honey," June said. "Let's get warm." Maisie's small hand clung to June's as they left the station behind, trudging through snow that came up to the girl's knees. The moon broke through the clouds, lighting the path down into Red Willow Valley. Trees leaned close, heavy with frost. Somewhere in the dark, a wolf howled. They walked nearly an hour, June's limbs stiff with cold, until a faint light appeared across a sloping field. A squat cabin. Smoke whispered from its chimney, faint and thin. "That's home," Maisie said. "Papa's inside." She climbed the porch steps like a child who belonged, then turned. "Don't leave." June hesitated, heart pounding. This wasn't her home. This wasn't her place. She was a mail-order bride with no groom, no luggage, and nowhere to go. Before she could reply, the door creaked open. A man stood in the frame, tall, rough-boned, one arm held stiff against his side. His eyes were ice blue, narrowed. He said nothing. "She found me," Maisie said. "She read me stories." June tried to explain. She was alone at the station. I walked her here. That's all. The man looked at her, unreadable, then stepped back. Inside was a single room, warm but spare. A wood stove. A cot. No woman's touch. June lingered in the doorway. I'll sleep in the barn, she offered. Just for tonight. He didn't argue, just nodded. Maisie followed her to the door. She's kind, the child said. Please let her stay. The man didn't answer. That night, in the barn, June lay beneath blankets smelling of hay. Her hand, split from catching Maisie's fall earlier that day, throbbed in the dark. But she didn't mind the cold. It was the first time in weeks she wasn't truly alone. In the morning, June helped gather eggs. No one asked her to. By the second day, she swept the floor, brought wood inside, read to Maisie after supper. By the third day, Hank. She learned his name from Maisie, let her cook. Kid eats what you make, he said. That's worth something. June noticed how he winced when he moved. His left arm barely lifted. War? She asked. Shiloh, he replied. Never healed right. The days blurred into a rhythm. June didn't ask to stay. Hank didn't ask her to go. She patched curtains, darned socks, read aloud by lantern light. The girl laughed more, slept easier. Then it happened. Maisie climbed the hayloft and slipped. June ran, arms out, heart in her throat, and caught the child just before she hit the ground. They crashed together. Maisie was safe. June's hand split open again. In the dirt, bleeding, she scrawled with shaking fingers, Maisie is safe. Hank found them moments later. He lifted Maisie gently, his face pale, said nothing. That night, he sat across from June by the fire. The silence stretched. Then, you stayed. I had nowhere else. You bled for her. She needed someone. He didn't reply, but something shifted. The next morning, June went to town for supplies. She stood outside the general store, waiting. Then she saw him. Doyle Turner. He leaned against the post, laughing with two men. Black gloves. Same cruel smile. Her throat tightened. He was there. At the burning. He killed her father. Laughed when the church collapsed. And he wore the same uniform Hank once wore. She turned and walked away, her hands trembling. That night, she stood in front of Hank's fire and said quietly, "He was one of yours." Hank looked up. "Who?" "Doyle Turner. He murdered my family. Rode with raiders. He wore blue." Hank's face hardened. "I knew him," he said. "Before." June stared into the flames. "He didn't just kill. He enjoyed it." Hank didn't speak. But June saw it in his eyes. He wasn't just listening. He was remembering. And now her ghosts had followed her to his door. June stayed, not because she had nowhere else, but because Maisie needed her, and that mattered more than her pride. She mended the curtains, boiled water for tea, and taught the girl to read aloud. The days settled into quiet rhythm. Chores in the morning, books in the evening, firelight whispering against the walls. Hank didn't say much, but he started sitting closer to the fire, listening as Maisie read, smiling now and then in the flicker of lamplight. One night, June found herself patching a hole in one of Hank's coats. The lining was torn, stiff with old blood. He noticed her pause. "Shrapnel," he muttered. "Shiloh." She didn't ask more. She didn't need to. War had shaped him, left half his body rigid, his words spare. But he'd built a life one plank at a time. And he let her stay. That counted. Until town. June went for flour and needles. She meant to walk in and walk out, invisible. But then she saw him. Doyle Turner leaned against the post office rail, laughing like he'd never burned a town to the ground. Same coat, same black gloves, same smile. He hadn't changed. Her legs carried her away before her breath returned. She didn't speak until nightfall, when the fire was low and Maisie had gone to sleep. Hank sat near the stove, carving a wooden button with a jackknife. "He was in your unit," she said, voice low. Hank looked up, startled. "Who?" "Doyle Turner. He's in town. I saw him today." He set the knife down. "You're sure?" "I remember his face." June whispered. He killed my father. Burned the school with children inside. He laughed. Hank didn't move. I wore that uniform too, he said quietly. She didn't reply. I didn't know what he'd become, he added. I didn't come west to find ghosts, she said. But they always follow. Neither of them spoke again. The fire burned low. 2 nights later, the barn caught fire. Maisie's scream tore through the darkness. June ran into the smoke before Hank could stop her. Flames clawed at the rafters. June found the girl beneath a beam, coughing, arms raised. She pulled her free, wrapped her in her own coat, and stumbled out just as the roof collapsed behind them. Her hands were burned, her dress scorched, but Maisie was safe. The next morning, Hank sifted through the charred remains. Near the ashes, he found a scorched red bandana, like the ones the raiders wore years ago, like the one Doyle Turner always had tied to his belt. He turned it over in his palm. The past had come for them both. He said nothing to June. He just saddled his horse and rode. Black Hill was quiet. Snowmelt ran in the gutters. The saloon porch creaked in the wind. Doyle sat outside, bottle in hand. Hank approached slow, rifle slung, coat heavy with ash. Well, look who limps into town, Doyle grinned. Heard your barn burned. Shame. Hank didn't reply. You here to accuse me of something, soldier? Doyle stood, tossing back the rest of his drink. We both know that uniform gave us license. We did things. You did too. I never burned children alive, Hank said. Doyle laughed. Who's gonna believe you? That mail-order bride? The brat. Hank lifted the rifle. 1 shot. Doyle screamed, clutching his shoulder. The gun fell from his hand. Blood ran down his coat. You'll live, Hank said, so she can sleep at night. The sheriff arrived moments later. Hank handed over the rifle. Arson. Attempted murder. You'll find the bandana in the barn, he said. His kind doesn't stop, unless you stop him. Then he walked away. Back at the ranch, the wind howled. June had packed her bag, left a note on the table. I know how to leave, but don't think I didn't want to stay. She was halfway down the snowy road when she heard hoofbeats. Hank dismounted in front of her. No speech, no ring, just a breath, a look. Let me start over, he said. Not for her, for you. You owe me nothing, she said. Exactly why it's real. She didn't speak, but she didn't walk away either. That night, she read aloud from Maisie's favorite book. The child curled between them by the fire. Hank rested his hand over June's. She smiled softly. What story tonight? Ours, she said. The one where you stayed. They lived in peace for 6 days. Maisie's laughter returned. June's hands healed. The ash from the fire was swept away, and though the barn remained half-collapsed, the house stood warmer than ever. Hank chopped wood in the mornings. June sewed curtains from flour sacks. The girl made dolls from corn husks and named each after people who hadn't left. But fear has its own sense of time. It doesn't forget. On the 7th morning, a stranger rode up the trail. He was thin, sharp-featured, and wore no star, but something in his posture told Hank he was no ordinary traveler. His boots were too polished, his eyes too alert. I'm looking for Doyle Turner, the man said. He's in jail, Hank replied, not rising from the porch. Shame, the man said, tipping his hat. He never was good at subtle. He left without another word. June watched from the kitchen window, her gut twisted. Something about that man didn't sit right. Hank agreed. Scouts don't ride alone, he said that night. Someone sent him, and if they sent one, more'll follow. June kept Maisie inside the next day. She cleaned the rifle Hank had given her hands steady now. Fear had become familiar. It no longer made her weak. It made her ready. Then came the second fire. This time it wasn't the barn. It was the chicken coop. Burned to cinders before dawn. Smoke woke June. She found the chickens dead, their feet curled, wings blackened. Maisie cried. June held her. Hank found fresh tracks in the snow. 2 horses, maybe 3. They'd circled the house. Come close. He looked at the tracks, then at the treeline. They're watching. That night, he boarded the windows. The next, a rock shattered the glass anyway. Thrown from the dark. No warning. It struck the wall above Maisie's bed. Splintered wood. Blood on her cheek from flying shards. She didn't scream. Just looked at June and whispered, "They want you to go." June held her close. "I won't," she said. "I won't." Hank found the rock. Wrapped in a bandana. Same pattern. They were sending a message. Not just to June. To all of them. Doyle Turner might have been behind bars. But he had friends. Allies who wore no badges, who moved through the territory like ghosts. And now they wanted to finish what Doyle had started. "You should take her and run," Hank said one morning, voice low. "Get on the train. Head east." "No. You don't understand. These men don't stop." "I understand better than anyone," she said. "And I'm not leaving her. Or you." The next day they rode to town. Hank filed charges against the men he suspected. Names whispered by Doyle's own breath before the sheriff dragged him away. The sheriff, a man too old and too tired, nodded, but his eyes were wary. "Fletcher," he said, "you sure you want to stir this up again?" "They stirred it," Hank replied. He bought new nails, a steel lock for the door, and extra ammunition. They returned home under a gray sky. Snow fell that night. Thick, heavy flakes. But in the morning the sky was clear, and the barn was gone. Flattened. Burned down to the stone. Inside had been June's letters. All of them. She stood in the ash. The charred remains crumbling in her fingers. Maisie stood beside her, tears streaking her cheeks. "They took your words," she said. "No," June whispered. "They only burned paper." That night, Hank sat cleaning his rifle long after the others had gone to sleep. The red bandana sat on the table beside him. He turned it over and over in his hand. Then he placed it in the fire and watched it burn. The next day, the deputy sheriff arrived, quiet, nervous. "We found Turner's cell empty," he said. "Someone let him out. No sign of forced entry." June said nothing, but her throat tightened. "They're going to finish what they started," Hank said after the man left. "He's out there, and he's coming here." The next night they kept the lamps low. June read softly to Maisie by the fire. Hank stood guard by the window, rifle in hand. No sleep. At midnight, Maisie stirred from her blanket and sat up. "Something's wrong," she said. Then the dog barked. Once. Then fell silent. Hank moved to the door. "I'll go," June said. "No," he said. "If they want me, they'll find me ready." He stepped out into the snow, moonlight glinting on the rifle barrel. The wind whispered. Trees creaked. Silence. Then, gunfire. One shot. Then two more. June jumped, shielding Maisie. Her heart pounded. Then footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Hank burst through the door, bleeding from his side, teeth clenched. "They're in the trees. 5, maybe 6. Didn't expect me to shoot back." He staggered. June caught him. Maisie screamed. "Stay down," June said, forcing Hank into the chair. She tore open his coat, saw the wound clean through the side, missing bone. "You'll live," she said. "I told you to run. You're not dying in this chair," she snapped. "Not tonight." Maisie helped her bind the wound. Outside, voices echoed. "She's in there. Burn it down." June grabbed her rifle. "You can't." Hank tried to stop her, but she was already at the door. "You want me, Turner?" she shouted into the dark. "Come and take me. But you won't get the girl. And you won't take this home." Silence. Then laughter. Doyle's voice. "Well now," he said, stepping from the trees. "Didn't expect you to grow a spine, schoolteacher." He held a torch. 3 men stood behind him, all armed. Hank stood, bleeding, lifting his rifle with one hand. "I warned you," he said. "Warned me." Doyle sneered. "You're nothing but a broken warhorse hiding behind women and books." Maisie peeked from the window. June stepped outside. "No guns," she said. "You want me? Then face me." "Why would I do that?" Doyle grinned. I got fire. I got men. I take what I want. She raised her rifle. Then take this. One shot. His torch fell to the snow, flame hissing. The men behind him raised their rifles, then hesitated. One lowered his gun. Turner, he muttered. You said there'd be no kid. Shut up, Doyle barked. But they stepped back. She's got a child, one said. You didn't tell us. She's got a wounded man bleeding inside. She's got guts, said the third. Turner cursed. You cowards. He raised his gun. But before he could fire, Hank's rifle rang out. Doyle fell to the snow, clutching his leg. The other men dropped their weapons. June stepped forward, rifle steady. You'll leave this land, she said. You'll tell your kind what happened here. The man nodded. They carried Doyle away. The snow covered their tracks. Inside, June helped Hank to bed. She washed his wound. Maisie brought water. No one spoke for a long time. Later, Hank reached for June's hand. You shouldn't have faced him alone. I wasn't alone, she said. You were with me. She was with me. That's what he'll remember. Outside, snow began to fall again. Soft, silent, but inside the fire burned bright. At the Miners' Trail Saloon, the air stank of whiskey and ash. Doyle Turner leaned back in a crooked chair, leg bandaged, his grin lazy and sour. 3 new men sat beside him, strangers with old rifles and bad intentions. He raised a glass. Here's to unfinished business. Then the door swung open. Footsteps, steady, heavy. Hank Fletcher walked in. The saloon went still. Every chair scraped back. Every man turned. Hank didn't raise his voice, didn't raise his rifle. He just stood there, coat open, arm still bandaged from the bullet that nearly took him. You wore a uniform once, Doyle, Hank said. You knew what it stood for. Doyle smirked, trying to rise, then gasped at the pain in his leg. That was a long time ago. Hank stepped forward. You tried to burn a child. You tried to kill a woman with no name left but kindness. That's not war. That's rot. One of Doyle's men reached for his gun. Hank moved first. One shot. Clean. The man cried out, clutching his shoulder. His rifle clattered to the floor. Next one's for the heart, Hank said calmly. He turned to the sheriff, who'd arrived during the standoff. Charges: arson, attempted murder, assault on a federal veteran, treason. The sheriff, old and tired, but not blind, nodded slowly. I'll see it done. Doyle tried to speak, but blood ran between his teeth. You'll live, Hank said, long enough to face a judge, so the girl can sleep safe. And he walked out. No celebration, no applause, just silence and justice. The snow was falling softly the morning June packed her bag. She did it quietly before sunrise, while Hank and Maisie still slept. She folded her dress, her coat, and tucked her grandmother's Bible beneath the flap. No tears, just silence. The house felt too full of memories now. Books by the fire, ash from the old barn, the sound of Maisie's laugh when she forgot the world had ever been cruel. June didn't belong here. Not really. She'd come west out of desperation, not love. She wasn't family. She was a survivor, and survivors knew when it was time to move on. She left the note on the kitchen table. I know how to leave, but don't think I didn't want to stay. Then she stepped out into the cold. The snow kissed her boots. Her breath rose in clouds. She didn't look back. She was halfway down the trail when the hoofbeats came. Hank rode up from the south pasture, coat open, scarf trailing. He didn't shout, didn't call her name. He just stopped beside her and dismounted. They stood there a long moment, snow gathering in his hair. No ring, he said. No speech. June didn't speak. But if you walk away now, he added, you'll take every warm thing in this place with you. I'm not yours, she whispered. I know, he said. That's why it matters. She looked up. He reached out, not pulling her, just holding still. Let me start over, he said. Not for Maisie. For you. June closed her eyes, then stepped forward. His arms wrapped around her. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. They rode back together through the falling snow. That night, the fire crackled in the hearth. Maisie lay curled on the rug, her head on a pillow, thumb in her mouth, breathing soft as a kitten. June sat beside Hank, her hand in his. He didn't speak much, but then he never had to. The cabin smelled of stew and pine wood. The past felt far away, quiet at last. "Which story tonight?" Hank asked. June smiled, pulling the old book into her lap. "Ours," she said. "The one where you made the fire feel like home." She opened the first page and began to read. "Bye-bye,"